On today's episode of Locked on Wild, so what do the Wild need to do to avoid what happened in 2011, 2012? I pulled the receipts.
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked on Wild.
You're Locked on Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked on Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's episode of Locked on Wild, Alex Micheletti joins us as we briefly talk about whatever it was that happened against the Nashville Predators. We'll also take a look at some impending returns this week. Are more players on the cusp of returning to the lineup? And I went through and looked because there have been a lot of comparisons to the 2011-2012 team. So I pulled the receipts. We'll see how things turned out for that team down the stretch, because it turns out Minnesota Wild this year have almost the same record, or had the same record through 30 games. So we'll talk about that. And we'll take a look at the salary cap. Some reports this weekend that the money's coming in. The money is coming in hot for the NHL. So a lot to get to here this week. Joined, as always, by Alex Micheletti here on a Monday edition of the show. Alex, no victory Micheletti Monday here today. We did get treated to a couple of dandy days of NFL postseason, as you would expect at this point in the season. But if the Wild had one goal in Saturday's game against the Nashville Predators, to avenge the double slew foot at the hands of Zachary Leroux. If they had one goal the entire night, they accomplished that. And that's good, because there really was nothing else that got accomplished in that game against the Nashville Predators.
Yeah. We were worried about this game, right? Just because all there had been was just talk about, getting revenge. And then that just was the main focus, and it's just frustrating because Nashville is not a good team, right? They're worst in the conference. You can't give away points to teams like that. And now the Wild are they're staring at Colorado overtaking them into one of the top three spots, and having the Wild bump down to a wild card spot, where with the way they were playing earlier this season, you thought there'd be no chance that they'd ever be a wild card team. And look, Colorado started to get healthy, and their elite players are playing at an elite level that's through the roof.
Yeah, and I've said it. We've said it on these episodes that they were gonna make a push once they got the goaltending figured out. They were going to make some noise, but it's interesting just how much concern there has been for this Minnesota Wild team through this stretch, considering the players that you take out of the lineup. And I would challenge any other team in the league to put together a similar record if you take your Hart Trophy candidate and not three of the top four, your top three defensemen out of the lineup, and you're fielding essentially an AHL fourth line, with the exception of Murat, who's Nadinov. He's not getting any help down there. Second line is just throwing whatever they can at that wing spot and trying to get that to click. It is the one difference, I would say, between like this. If this happened last year, free fall. Like there's no way that last year's team is able to navigate through something like this. And we saw a good deal of that last year. Mm-hmm. I think this year's team has more resiliency in the tank than last year's does. And they're going to need it because I'm going to be perfectly honest here. It feels like with what we've seen with Philip Gustafson's performance the last 4 starts, feels like he's probably hurt too. Joel Eriksson Ek is trying to navigate through injury himself. It is a team that is, as of right now, they're dealing with a lot. And so I'm not gonna like, oh my God, the season is over. That I'm never going to be somebody that does any of that. But we just keep like looking at the clock and we're like, okay, come on, like let's get guys in the lineup, which hopefully is going to be this week because with Spurgeon and Kaprizov both practicing full on Friday, I would assume that means then that they get a couple more practices in this week and then they're back in.
Try to get them for Utah, and because Utah's they look like they're improving a whole lot, so that's not going to be an easy one. It'd be nice to get them back. They can't afford any more people to get hurt. Especially after Johansson going down, and I'm sure everybody saw the McDavid cross check on Connor Garland. It was a tough week for McDavid there with just losing his mind. That looks like he's going to get suspended for the second of the hits. So we'll see with that. But it's with Johansson going out, the second line becomes even. What do you do? Because you have a banged up center, and I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what he does get, because it was a pretty clear elbow to Marcus Johansson, and you don't put a guy on injured reserve for flopping. You just don't.
And he's had a history of concussions. Not like it was his first concussion. Who knows what's going to happen there?
So we'll see. But as you alluded to, the schedule for this week features a Monday game against Colorado, and then off until Thursday. So that is nice. That we like, an opportunity, and I think that's exactly why they did that, was now Spurgeon and Kaprizov can get practice time in on Tuesday, Wednesday, and gear up and get ready to rock on Thursday. That is my new timetable. I was hoping that Kaprizov would be able to return for the Nashville game, but not in the cards, so we hope at this point that it's against Utah. And then Calgary at home, because after that you start a nice little 5-game road trip against just a conglomerate of Eastern Coast teams except for Chicago somehow.
Of course. Yeah, Calgary, they're sneaky. I mean, they are in a playoff spot now, which everybody thought Calgary was going to just be in complete rebuild mode. And, they have some sneaky veterans on that team. Jonathan Huberdeau is completely bounced back. Everybody thought, after that trade, he did have a really tough start there to his Calgary career, but now he's really turned it on. And Nazem Kadri has just always been a thorn in the Wild side, going back to when he was with Toronto, and he's quite the hockey journey he's had. And they have a decent back end with Rasmus Anderson and Mackenzie Weegar, and just some really solid players. And Dustin Wolf, he looks like he's the next up and coming goalie stud. So we'll see.
Yeah, ask Winnipeg how good Dustin Wolf is.
Yes.
Got shut down by him in his most recent start. So it's going to come down to the wire, and I take solace in the fact that at least in the wild card chase in the West, there will be teams that'll be at or above 500. Not going to be the case in the East.
Yeah, what it's crazy. Dean Evison, he's got to put himself into the coach of the year running.
Oh, for sure.
Just the situation he came into. It's just it's incredible. You have teams that aren't really like Pittsburgh. Who knows? Montreal. How about Patrick Laine? He's on fire. He had the game winner against the Rangers last night. It's Montreal's a really good story too. Just kind of crazy there for the last couple spots in the East.
Here are the records of the teams that are currently in contention for wildcard spots. So you have Ottawa, who is 24, 18, and 4. But what do we like to say on this show? 24 and 22. Columbus is 22, 17, and 7. So they're 22 and 24. Montreal is 23 and 23. Boston is 22 and 25.
Boston's
New York Rangers. You have like 3 different Eastern Conference teams that have had crisis level seasons. Boston, the New York Rangers, and the Buffalo Sabres. And guess what? Only one of those teams is out of it. But Buffalo's 12, they're 12 points out, and they are like, call off the dogs, you're done. Boston is 1 point out. Again, crisis level bad season for them. 22 and 25. The New York Rangers are 22 and 24. Same thing for them, but they're only 3 points out. Philadelphia is 21 and 26. Detroit is 21 and 25. Pittsburgh is 19 and 29. And they are 5 points out of a playoff spot.
How about the most absurd thing that I've seen a team account do in a long time is to announce a specific time that Tristan Jarry is going to be going on waivers. They out in the public, just for everybody to know that 2 p.m. we are releasing you. Not releasing you. We're just putting you on waivers because no one's picking up that contract. But
no,
it's just like, oh, bro, yikes.
Yeah, that was bad. And I talked about this on the national show too today. I have come up with a solution for how to fix the debacle. So you go to a 2 or a 1 system, and you only reward the teams that win. 2 points if you win in regulation, 1 point if you win in overtime.
Yeah, that makes
That's it. That's it. That's done.
Yeah, the shootout is just the fact that you get rewarded for getting there, it's just that's so annoying.
Yeah, congratulations for getting to overtime and losing.
Right.
Here's your point. No.
The loser point is ridiculous.
I don't think we're going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
You get 2 points for winning in regulation. If the game goes to overtime, you have 1 point that's up for grabs for both teams. You play overtime to decide who gets that point.
Right. Fix that, and then also fix the playoff format. Just go back to what it was, Gary, 1 versus 8. Or if you don't like the 1 versus 8, do the 1 versus 16. Like, no one likes the current format because it's always the same teams.
I don't want to see Edmonton and the Los Angeles Kings for the 5th straight season.
And let McDavid and Draisaitl just toy with Darcy Kemper.
Is this going to be the year the Los Angeles Kings get over the hump and beat the Edmonton Oilers in the first round? No, it is not.
No, it is not.
No, it is not. But hey, we say this now, and we're going to be just glued to the televisions once the playoffs start because that's just how it works. That's just how it's done.
Always.
We just have some suggestions, some little tweaks, and at this point, even with the Wild in a little bit of a skid, 7-9 in their last 16 games, they are still, as of right now, in the 3rd spot with an opportunity to pick up 2 points. They have a game in hand on Colorado. They're 7 points clear of Calgary right now. So they've got some cushion built up. We've been saying this for weeks. They've got cushion built up because of how they started the season. And the hope now is to just get back to that level once you get Kirill back, once you get Jared Spurgeon back, that this will start to look a little more like normal. So that's all I'm saying on that. I'm not gonna jump off the cliff. I'm not doing any of that. That's just the way it is. So we'll see what happens. But speaking of, there have been a lot of comparisons to the 2011-2012 season for this Minnesota Wild team because they started off with the same record through 30 games and lost it. So I will give you the math as to what the Wild need to do to avoid that same record. It's pretty doable, ? So we'll discuss. We'll take a look at some things to learn from that 2011-2012 team or to learn to not do. We'll talk about all that as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. We know who will be playing in the NFC and AFC championship games this upcoming weekend. It'll be Washington and Philly, another NFC East duel, and it'll be the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills, the rematch. So some exciting games. Check out FanDuel.com to see who is favored in both cases. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. We'll have a postcast for you, and I say that in a questioning manner because we got an afternoon game here today. The Wild are taking on the Colorado Avalanche, so no bedtime for me. So we'll do a post game for you after that game is finished. It's on ESPN, so I look forward to watching with the volume off, as I typically do for the four-letter network. Depending on who, if it's, I'm going to do a shameless plug here. If it's Bob Wischusen, I would listen to him read a phone book. Bob Wischusen is fantastic.
He was great in the playoffs last year. Yeah,
but some of the others, some of my favorite SportsCenter personalities should stay on SportsCenter.
Their audio still, they still can't figure it out. Their audio too.
I know they had there was some glitch in a recent game, and I'm like, we're midway. We're like halfway through year 2, or is it year 3 at this point?
3, I think. Yeah, it's crazy. We miss NBC for sure.
Yes, we do. TNT, keep doing what you're doing though. TNT,
they nail it.
Geniuses. And Rick Bowness on the panel.
Yeah, how about
that was
unexpected. Yeah,
love me some Rick Bowness. So keep doing your thing, but ESPN, I just want to talk. I just want to talk is all. Alex, the 2011-2012 Minnesota Wild team started their season 27-3. So what do we say? What do the everydayers? What do we say here on Locked on Wild? They were 20-10, just like this Minnesota Wild team, 26-4, 20-10, and that 2011-2012 team missed the playoffs because they finished the season 35, 36, and 11. I'm not great at math, but what I can tell you is, because I took the time to do the notes before recording, they started 27-3. That means that Wild team finished 15, 29, and 8. So over the course of the final 50-ish games of the season, 53 games of the season, the Wild found a way to be 20 games under 500, which is ludicrous. It's one thing to have a season fall apart. It is one thing to have the season fall off a cliff. And that is your 2011-2012 Minnesota Wild. Again, 15, 29, and 8 to finish off the season. Now, I wasn't this huge student of the hockey world back in 2011-2012. I was in a different sports realm at that point in my life, huge in baseball, followed the Vikings quite a bit, obviously was familiar with the sport of basketball, and I knew that hockey existed. at that point. But it seems like you really have to have things go wrong to go 20 games under 500 over a 53-game span. And so I look at the roster here. Injuries would do it.
Yeah. Who was the head coach too at that time?
That's a great question. I want to say that was a Yo team.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I do believe.
Poor Mike Yo. Poor Mike Yo. But as we know, in the NHL world, he's lived on as an assistant all over the place.
I don't know how he.
It's crazy.
That was even better. That was Mike Yo's first season.
Oh boy.
Let's just read what. Oh no, that's the entire NHL recap for 2011-2012. We don't need the whole thing.
Like
I
meme.
would just.
I ain't reading all that.
No, I would just like the. 2011 season. So Todd Richards was fired after the 2010-2011 season. Forgot that name existed.
Oh, that was a brutal time.
Due to the team failing to reach the playoffs in his 2 seasons with a 77, 71, and 16 record. Then in comes Mike Yo, who had just led the Houston Aeros to the Western Conference title in 2011, was named the new head coach. That was the final year of Danny Heatley. He was traded to the Sharks after the 2012 season. And guess what happened during the 2012 offseason?
Oh, boy.
Zach Parise and Ryan Suter.
Yes.
So
July 4th.
The 2011-2012 season, a season which will live in infamy because of just a meltdown. Oh, and that was the year that Brent Burns got traded too.
Yeah.
The year before, I should say, during the 2011 entry draft, the Wild used their 10th overall pick to select Jonas Brodin. They also created a stir when they traded star defenseman Brent Burns and a second-round pick in 2012 to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for Devin Setoguchi, Charlie Coyle, and the 28th overall pick in the 2011 draft.
Setoguchi,
which they used to select Zach Phillips.
Oh, God. What a complete bust that was.
Wow. This went desperately off the rails.
Man, at least Charlie Coyle was productive. But...
Yeah. This article also says later in the offseason, the Wild traded Martin Havlat for Danny Heatley, another blockbuster trade with the Sharks. In November, the team set a franchise record for most wins in 1 month with 11, despite a hot start to the season that saw them sitting atop the NHL standings in early December. That sounds familiar. Multiple injuries to key players for extended periods effectively eliminated the team from playoff contention for the 4th consecutive year. But here's why I think this differs. Is because that team, those Wild teams, built similarly to this current iteration, but very much not equipped to handle diversity or losses. I feel like this current Minnesota Wild roster has way more talent than
100%.
those teams
goaltending
did.
Too, yeah.
So let's remember the 2011-2012 season forever, or not, for setting into motion a chain of events that we are still
the franchise forever.
Yes, that we're still digging out of to this day. So
that in 2025, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Think about that though. 13 years later,
yeah,
you're still digging out of the rubble. Man alive. Well,
and that doesn't happen to too many franchises.
No. Oh. The franchises in those types of scenarios just stay bad. So here's what needs to happen. So the Minnesota Wild right now, and everybody knows that when I try to make an emphatic point, I point at the screen. I've seen this pointed out in postcast, and I die laughing every time. They're like, "Oh, Seth just pointed at the screen. That means something big is coming up." The Minnesota Wild, since the 26-4 start, are 7-9, which I think, considering the circumstances, I think a lot of people will take that.
100%.
In order to avoid in order to do better than the 2011-2012 team, the Wild need to finish the season 8-20-8. So they need to be 8. They need to do better than 8-28 in the final 36 games. I think that's doable.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see.
We'll definitely see.
Don't be keep Wild players in your thoughts.
Yes.
But like I said, this feels like a way more resilient group than I can't imagine where that 2011-2012 team was at from a mentality standpoint, and frankly, probably don't want to know.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. But we're going to take a look at some interesting news regarding the cap. We're always checking in on the cap, and there are some reports that suggest we're getting more than a bump. We're getting an injection. So let's dive into that as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wilds after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Select Quote. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from Select Quote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. Select Quote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets Select Quote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million with no medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Go to selectquote.com/lockedonnhl today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Select Quote. They shop, you save. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. And once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Yes, we will be ripping a postcast for you tonight after the game is done. This afternoon, I should say. It's a 2 o'clock game. We'll be postcasting by like 4:45. So make sure to tune in and join us because it's the Avs. And it's a game that I would like the Minnesota Wild to be able to handle. But we'll see.
And you know what? Even better, you join the postcast and then it leads you right into the national championship game, Ohio State and Notre Dame. So get you through.
I like the way you think.
Yeah.
Just navigating the different sports, going right from one to the next.
Exactly.
I like that. I dig that. Alex, I think you saw this as well because we were discussing it. The NHL notified NHL players about something that does not happen often. Frank Cervalli, bear with me, this is a long tweet. NHL players have been notified escrow withholding from checks will be terminated for the remainder of the season starting with January 30th payroll run. Revenue projections indicate amount already withheld also will be returned in full following final season accounting. Related, final 2023-2024 accounting of HRR has not been settled, but players are projected to receive full 6% back plus an additional 1.5 to 2% on top of that. In other words, players will be paid 101.5% to 102% of their published salaries from last season because the owners collected more than their share of the 50-50 split. Think of it like paying your taxes. If you're getting a refund, that means you're giving the government an interest-free loan. In this case, lag formula has created an environment where the salary cap is by design artificially low and players are underpaid relative to revenue being collected. I'm going to read you another one that is, I think, does a better job of explaining. Marco D'Amico, who covers hockey for various outlets. He tweeted out on the 17th, exclusive. The NHL has canceled escrow payments from players for the rest of the year due to higher revenue earnings. Not only that, but they're also sharing their extra profits with the players between 2 to 6%. The salary cap was projected to go to $93 million. Marco says, I'm not so sure anymore. So, Alex, it has widely been reported, and it's important to note, too. Trav pointed this out to me after one of the episodes previously where I discussed the potential for the salary cap to bump. The NHL doesn't determine what the salary cap is for the next season until after the current season is done, because they calculate the revenue and it's a percentage of the revenue that is generated by the league. So this is all speculation. There's no way to know what the number is going to be, but I feel pretty confident considering this information. And this isn't the first time this has ever happened, but as Marco announces in a follow-up tweet, he says, for the league to cancel escrow payments in January is unheard of. Means revenue is going to be well above projections, which means the salary cap is going to have to catch up. So we thought it was going to go from 88 to like 92. Looks like it's maybe going to be more like 97 or 98, which would be just fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing, especially, it's so hard to navigate how that's going to happen with revenue, just with the Canadian teams and all the chaos that's happening up there with them. And so, yeah, it's so good, especially for a team that's been through so much cap issues with the Wild. It would be so nice to have that happen, have it go up so much with the buyout money finally coming off the books, right?
Yeah, and that's people are have been pointing out correctly that a good portion of the Parisian Suter cap hits has been spent with extensions. Brock Faber's extension, Marco Rossi's extension, whenever that gets agreed to. Kirill Kaprizov's extension when that gets agreed to. So you don't have a ton to be able to allocate towards potential free agents, but this is how you get some unexpected room to be able to use to bring somebody in. Is if you have a bump from 92 and it goes up to, say, let's just say 98 just for math purposes, that's an extra $6 million you didn't think you were going to have that you now have at your disposal. So you're going to go from having, I don't know what the number is. People have been widely guessing as to what the actual amount of space the Wild will have next year will be. You're going to have probably $5 or $6 million on top of that. So this notion that Craig Leopold wants to go out and get a big fish could come to fruition, but it all depends on what the league sets the salary cap at for next year.
Mm-hmm. It's you never know with Gary, right? You just never, you can never hold your breath, and it's like, oh, well, here we go. But it will lead to an interesting offseason too, and this team has so many question marks, and got to figure out you're off and all that, all that jazz. And this team, it's like the Vikings with their offensive line and secondary. It just it seems like the Wild can never figure out the center position. No matter what. Hopefully they can get that resolved in this upcoming off season. But yeah,
secondary scoring has been a thorn for.
And Marcus Johansson will not be on the team most likely. Thank God.
I hate that we had to even put in the
Bring him up.
sequitur of hopefully.
Hopefully not.
But we'll see. So we're keeping an eye on that as the season unfolds. But as we mentioned, it won't be calculated until the season is done and they know what they got for revenue. So we won't know for probably until, probably in July before free agency starts.
Yeah, they have to get that figured out because
end of June or whatever.
Teams are already projecting,
I like that they go fluidly, I guess. That they go year to year and they're like, well, we don't really know what the schedule is until we get done. It's like, okay.
Just think a couple years ago they were in the bubble. Like that's amazing.
I know.
It's amazing. And that was your introduction to the, just chaos hockey. We had games going out all throughout the day, night, just crazy games too.
Oh, that was the best too. That is the one thing. That's the one thing that I will give Gary major props on is getting everybody back into sports mode that way.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. But that's also why I'm so critical. And you need to start the season. You need to have your first full day of games on a Saturday and just go 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Just stagger them through.
Love it. Yeah, people would love that. Get more games on TV too.
But it's like, nope, we're going to do a 3 p.m. game. We're going to do 19 7 p.m. games. Then we're going to do a 9 o'clock game.
We're going to have the Winter Classic on along with 12 other games.
Gary, I'm dying over here. Just please.
Blackhawks, yes. Another outdoor game. A terrible Blues team, sign me up.
Yeah, can't wait. Can't wait for that. Well, I don't know. If I ever take over as commissioner, I'll make some changes.
And next season it's in Florida. Crazy.
Well, with that, I'm going to finish with a stick tap to one Charlie Stramel, Minnesota Wild prospect who is playing for the number 1 rated Michigan State Spartans in college hockey. Got to give Charlie some love because they took on, I think, was Michigan ranked number 10?
Yeah, right around there, 10, 11. Yeah, they're kind of right on the borderline of making the tournament.
Charlie had 2 goals against Michigan and had an assist as well. So a 3-point night for Stramel, who is up to 8 goals on the season. He's got 21 points in 24 games. He's playing some good hockey for the number 1 team in the nation, and that is a far stretch from what we thought he would be doing at this point. So bravo to Charlie Stramel. I at this point, I think it's a good reminder that things can change with these prospects. But
he's playing with. I know a lot of fans of this show know who Isaac Howard is. He kind of had the similar with Stramel. His experience at UMD did not go well, and he transferred out of there and went to Michigan State. And kind of just like Charlie was having troubles at Wisconsin, and now is at Michigan State, and they're playing on the same line together. And Isaac is Hudson, Wisconsin native, and Tampa Bay draft pick, and of course Tampa drafted him. He's going to be in the NHL soon too. He's a heck of a college hockey player, and that's seems that transfer by Charlie to Michigan State seems to be working out. So yeah, we wish him well.
We'll see how his season plays out as well. But that will do it for today's episode of Locked On Wild. So appreciate everybody tuning in as always. Thank you for making Locked On part of your daily viewing plans. We will we'll keep you company after the game tonight. So make sure to tune in then. But otherwise, we'll send you on your way. Make sure to hit that like button before you head out for the day. And make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms as well. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.